get off the phone with the seller, and they tell you that they're gonna repair the house themselves. They'd rather, they're not going to sell it to you. They're just going to fix the house because they see that they can get more value if they just fix it and put it up on the MLS themselves. Great, awesome. That is a sequence right there of a perfect place where you can focus in on the pain point that they're dealing with.
Paul, thank you for joining me for our Thought Leader Spotlight series. I'm your host, Matt Camp, head of partnerships over here at DealMachine. And on these, we really like to shine a spotlight on industry experts like yourself, hear your inspiring stories and really educate our audience on the lessons that you've learned over the years. So I'm really excited to welcome on today, Paul Campo. I know you're a flipper, investor, and now a top marketer and copywriter for really helping investors improve their revenue and improve their follow-up. You do really great work with our partners at Ballpoint Marketing and Ryan Dossie and Call Porter and all those guys. And then you're the founder now of reiomnidrip.com as well. So that's made to really help off-market investors who lack systematic follow-up. So welcome on, Paul. Thanks for taking the time out, man.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it, man. So yeah, whatever you want to talk about. If you want to talk about follow-up systems, how I build follow-up systems, how I implement my system for real estate investors, taking principles of e-commerce, of coaching, and bring them into the motivated seller world. So
yeah, let's do it. And really, I mean, right before we get into that, I do love that you were an investor yourself, and still have properties and things like that. So can you talk about maybe your background in that world and your journey there, and how you got started in real estate, and how you realized like, oh man, I can really help people, with their follow up and in that whole journey?
yeah, so I started back in 2015,
Mm-hmm.
wholesaler out in Southern California. Really a rough market to start in. It's a high cost per acquisition market,
Mm-hmm.
but the upside is high profit margins on the back end. Um, but I started there. Really struggled as well. It was my first entrepreneurial stage in life, first venture. I transitioned from there into flipping mobile homes into notes. I still hold some of those notes today. I transitioned there just because the opportunities fell very easily on my lap. Not a lot of people were marketing to mobile homes. There's a whole lot of mobile homes out here. So from there, then I transitioned again into raw land flipping. And the reason I did it there, because acquisition is the front end effort for acquisition is a lot easier in raw land.
Mm-hmm.
And and flipped into notes as well. Some of them notes, some of them cash. I still do that land flipping, not on a big volume basis, but more of an investment purpose. I got a few extra, some extra cash bundled up here I need to use, and I buy a couple lots and sell them. So on that, I've become more of a armchair investor today, more of a private investor today. And so I can focus more on what I really enjoy doing, which is doing the back end marketing, copy stuff for brand, like you mentioned, Ballpoint Marketing, Call Porter, working on their stuff, working on my own stuff. So and where follow up came into the picture there was. Um, was really just developing follow up systems for individual real estate investors, where there's a huge, I think I mean, there is a huge problem. I think there's a huge need for it, because what investors do with follow up is archaic. It's a really old style of follow up marketing, which it's a folder system. It's the hot, cold, and it's the warm bucket systems, which are literally like they're literally a system used before the digital age, where you had folders. It was a very simple system. So you had your hot, cold, and warm. You just move your pieces of paper, your leads, into your folder system. And with that, what I started noticing is people haven't really developed the right messaging, and the right message to the right person at the right time type of system. And what happens is people started losing leads. They started to lose leads to other investors. Their team forgets about leads, because if you have if you have a volume business where you've got 100 leads coming in at a time, and with those 100 leads, statistically, generally speaking, 33% of those are going to be tire kickers, 33% are going to be people who set an appointment now, and the other 33 are going to be people who just aren't ready yet. Um, they got other issues going on, they got other problems going on. They just aren't ready to set an appointment or even sell just yet. Now, the people you set an appointment with, you might get 3 to 6 of them that close out on a deal with you. Those are the sellers now, the ones that are hair on fire. They need to sell yesterday.
Mhm.
But a lot of times, the ones that just aren't ready yet, they get forgotten in the system. They may get put in your system, they get put in your CRM, but you don't have the right format for sending the right message to the right person at the right time. So I developed a follow up system for that, to solve that problem, really based off of what a lot of e-commerce industry is doing today, what a lot of coaching is doing today, taking ideas of lead segmentation, event based triggers, and I'm gonna talk about that. I'm gonna kind of narrow it down to three important
That'd be
factors
great. Yeah.
for a follow up system.
Mhm.
Yeah, and building credibility, and helping investors with um, the biggest issue that a lot of them say is I don't know what else to say besides are you still selling a property. So there's a whole lot that investors can say besides are you still selling a property. So that's why I help them build out is a complete follow up system messaging format of email and SMS with sequences that are complete, that really follow the lead from beginning to end. So
Nice, love it. I mean, I was curious on that front when you said like, hey, people don't know what to say outside of "Are you still selling?" Like, what are the other real key, biggest mistakes that you see often that are committed by investors, maybe not intentionally, but just things that you see that, hey, here are areas that you can really improve when you're thinking about your lead follow up process.
yeah, I think, well, to answer your question about problems, I said a couple of them. It's the kind of the old follow up system, where the sequences, there's only basically three systems, very simple format, but it was designed for a literal folder system.
Mhm.
Today we have flashy CRMs that we can really take advantage of to really control an automated follow up system where it does cut the manual work. I'm not A follow-up system is not going to take away manual follow-up, but it is going to take a lot of the heavy lifting with follow-up, so that you don't rely on your back end team, on your lead manager, your acquisition manager, to remember all the follow-up they need to do. You can send tasks, you can send lots and lots and lots of tasks, but then that starts to bottleneck the time involved, where you can eliminate half of those tasks and just send a very personable SMS or email that does a lot of the selling for you. That goes a little more beyond than just, hey, are you still looking to sell? That's top of mind marketing. A lot of investors do it, and we're still going to do top of mind marketing, but we're going to also take advantage of other principles of marketing and copy, to embed inside our system. So with that, to make it real simple, I had to narrow down everything I do into three like simple concepts.
Yeah.
So what the three are, we build a follow up system based off event based triggers, and we also uh, build copy that's more problem and solution driven, and then we also use and the third concept is we use a concept called stack marketing. So for the first one, event based triggers. So this is basically your sequences, and this is what a lot of e-commerce does today, where you build sequences based on what happens in a seller's selling phase. Most of the time, we bundle it up into hot, cold, and warm. But if you start breaking it down into event based triggers, you can now send messages that are more tailored for that specific event. Excuse me. So for example, this happens often. You get off the phone with a seller, and they tell you that they're gonna repair the house themselves. They'd rather, they're not gonna sell it to you. They're just gonna fix the house because they see that they can get more value if they just fix it and put it up on the MLS themselves. Great, awesome. that is a sequence right there of the, a perfect place where you can focus in on the pain point that they're dealing with. Because let's face it, I mean, the sellers that say that, a small percentage of them are actually going to
Right.
actually fix the house themselves. Very small percentage. They're going to maybe swing a hammer, start putting up start taking down drywall or kitchen, whatever it is, and they realize, holy crap, this is a lot of work. I don't want to do this. And so over time, if you're doing the top of mind marketing, along with um, talking about giving them value based off of their situation, there's lots of value, and we can remind them about how they need to let their insurance know about their remodel. Give them value on what to look out for in contractors, what items give you the most value in your remodel. We can also leverage the pain points that they're going through. That way, it's not just top of mind. Now we're also being the experts in the subject matter
Mhm.
to them. Now we're being the perceived experts and giving them the credibility to go with us when they decide. They throw the hammer down. They say, "Hey, look, I'm just going to take the cash offer." So that's one example on an event based
Love
trigger.
that. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So it's all a funnel. This is, if we think about it, all of what we do for acquiring motivated sellers and acquiring deals it's a funnel. Uh,
Mhm.
Starting from our leads, which to back up a little bit, lead generation is very expensive. We don't Getting a call is expensive. So that's what this when building out a follow up system. We've all heard about the leaky bucket syndrome. Dan Kennedy talks a lot about that back in the day, and investors know all about it. But when it comes to fixing that leaky bucket, what it does is it lowers the amount of effort, time, and money that we have to input into new lead generation. When we have money in that bucket right now, deals and leads in that bucket that we can monetize based on just leveraging the right message, right time to the right person, based on leveraging event based triggers, problem solution, copy, and stack marketing that I'm going to go over in a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's
I was
yeah.
going. I
Go
was
ahead.
going to mention that that's particularly relevant for people using DealMachine too. Like if you're out there generating leads, like, hey, this is, use these principles to get the most bang for your buck with those leads, and make sure you're following up to close with those leads. And like you said, it's one thing to try to do that one to one with an acquisitions person or someone who's going to try to reach out to every single lead, all the time, but to be able to scale that or do that just by yourself, like you need something to really automate that follow up. So love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The automation is the key for all this. I mean, you can have lots of different sequences. But really, we have the technology in place to do this. CRMs are very advanced these days. We can really automate the messaging, the conversation, and still make it personable too. People think that when you put in automation, that it eliminates some of with lack of better words, the personality of marketing, but it doesn't. It doesn't completely replace it. I'm not saying that now you go 100% just automated. There has to be some face-to-face interaction, of course, throughout the process with the seller, but it does cut that manual time in half, and it also leverages these events so that you don't lose leads. Right? So to throw in another sequence that we do that clients have been really enjoying is the event where a seller tells you that they signed with somebody else, which it happens frequently.
Mhm.
They signed with somebody else because their offer was better, but um, a lot of times those transactions, they fall out of escrow.
Mhm.
All right, there's something that happened. Maybe the investor was full of it. He offered way too much. He has to renegotiate, so then that deal falls out of escrow. Well, that is a perfect place for us to still be top of mind and leverage that pain point right there. So that's
Mhm.
that's another sequence, another event-based trigger that you can implement into your follow-up. That's almost 100% automated. You still have tasks in place, of course, but for 80% of the messages that go out can be automated, can be emails and text messages. So
Nice.
so yeah, that's event-based triggers, dude.
Yeah.
So the The other aspect, the second aspect of this, I know you want to keep this
Yeah,
30 minutes, so
go for it, man.
so the other second aspect of it is going to be problem and solution driven copy.
Mhm.
So this solves the problem of what to say besides are you still selling your property. And I kind of touched on this earlier, but investors have a lot of features and benefits, and this is where, as a copywriter myself, this is where my job comes in handy. Where um, we don't cash offer means a whole plethora of things. It can mean a whole range of solutions for people. It's not just sometimes, because we're so neck deep into the business, we forget that when we say cash, for us it means one thing. For another person, they really don't know what it means exactly.
Mhm.
So for example, features and benefits. One thing that we can that a seller has, a benefit they have when working with an investor, is they can leave all their unwanted things behind. And this is something we've employed in at Ballpoint Marketing, which is a print shop.
Mhm.
um, we try to, when it comes to like our series of postcards, every postcard has a specific feature or benefit that pertains to general sellers. So leaving all your unwanted things behind, selling with only one appointment. That's a big benefit, because one thing that our cash offer does, what it eliminates, is a seller having to go through buyer after buyer after buyer, going through open house after open house, going through multiple appointments with buyers, where there's a lot of situations where that is a pain in the ass to
Mhm.
deal with. So we eliminate that, and that's a benefit and feature that we can talk about. We should be talking about. We have a whole list, a checklist of feature and benefits that there are solutions for the sellers that we need to be talking about in our copy, especially in our follow up copy. That's probably the most important part to include this type of copy is in our follow up.
Mhm.
Not so much in the lead generation. Lead generation is the simple cash offer has always worked the best. We might include one or two benefits for that, but keeping it short and simple has always worked the best for lead generation. But when it comes to really building the trust, credibility with sellers on the back end, with sellers who just aren't ready to sell yet or have other issues, and you know that they're probably might be in communication with other investors, this is where good copy via features and benefits comes into play.
Yeah.
So yeah, this has to do with lead segmentation, by the way.
Mhm.
So um, this is probably a third aspect, but maybe I'll start talking about a fourth as well. So
Yeah.
I'll throw a fourth
So
in
the,
here.
the lead
Um,
segmentation stuff, I'd love for you to break that down too for people if you have a chance. But
yeah. So this ties directly into lead segmentation.
okay.
So um, when it comes to follow up, we can segment via probate leads, foreclosures, etc. But I don't really do that. I don't really segment with those too much. You can. It just leads to a very complicated. You're gonna have a lot of buckets, I guess you can say, quote
Mhm.
buckets. Um, and plus, I don't like to bring up direct problems like that, direct problems with foreclosure, or some people have a tax default type of sequence. What I do instead for lead segmentation is I make it as simple as possible and narrow it down to three types of leads.
Mhm.
um, Owner occupant, vacant house, and landlord, or house with tenants inside. I narrow it down to those three because those are the main three problems that somebody is going to have. So what do I mean by this? A landlord is not going to have the same problems or pain points that somebody with a vacant house has right now,
Mhm.
and vice versa. So there's a whole range of features and benefits that we can do, but how do we, without knowing the person and knowing their specific situation, it's hard to like narrow down which one are we going to choose. But if I narrow it down to tenant, vacant, or owner occupant, now I can start narrowing down the features and benefits that I'm going to use,
Mhm.
right? Because with the tenant, the tenant problems, right? They have the problem of if they're going to sell the house with a tenant inside, the problems that the tenant the potential problems of eviction if they're going to be doing an eviction. So now it becomes a lot simpler to now send again. I keep bringing this up: the right message to the right person at the right time. Now it's easier for me to narrow down on on a specific message for that specific person. So I'm narrowing down. So this is basically all fun, like a funnel, like I mentioned. We're narrowing down from events. Now we're narrowing down into leads as well. So yeah, that's kind of the basics of lead segmentation and problem solution type of copy.
And just
So
really breaking down the idea of the funnel as well. So that's super helpful.
right. Yeah. Marketing is all funnel. It's just
Yeah.
it's bringing somebody down. It's a cycle, getting them down from lead acquisition down to deal acquisition. So,
Nice.
yeah, the third component to all this and making all this work, and this may sound like a whole lot of sequences, and it can be, but ideally, what people want in there, because CRMs are so sophisticated today, and you have your nice dashboards, it makes actually viewing drip sequences, it makes it easy and pretty handy these days,
For
depending
sure.
on the CRM you're using. But ideally, what what I want to happen is as soon as your lead manager or your acquisition manager finds out new information, they get off the phone with them, they find out new information, you can then switch them over into a new sequence, a new drip sequence that does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. It does the tasks, it does the SMS follow up for you. That's not, and this is an important feature, this is an important part of it, that doesn't collide with your personal conversations with people, right? So that's they have to be generic, but at the same time, not but sounding personable. I don't know if that makes any sense, Matt,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
um, that's been a critique, not a critique, but uh, what my clients have said in the past is they like that it's what's the word, agnostic,
Yeah.
meaning it does everything that I've been telling them, meaning it's problem solution driven, it's benefit feature driven, event based driven, but at the same time, and it's personable. But at
Mhm.
the same time, it's agnostic from their one on one conversations with the seller. So that's an important part you got to keep in mind when you build these follow up drips.
Yeah.
So
It's
um,
it's hard to find
the,
it's hard to find that balance too of like you said, the being, personalized enough but not too generic to really build that relationship with the seller.
there's nothing wrong with kind of sounding like it's coming from a company. It all matters on the context of your business and where you're getting your leads, right? So
Mhm.
I had this talk with somebody. This seller, this client gets most of his leads from radio and TV, and so we have to keep whatever lead generation you're using, that's a type of feeling that you're giving off to sellers,
Mhm.
right? Not all lead generation is created equally. The type of lead you generate from radio and from TV is very different than the ones you generate from cold texting or cold calling. So his question was, he's doing radio, he's doing TV. How should his follow up look like with that? And he was thinking of making it like a one-on-one type of thing, like it's coming from him. And I told him, if your brand, you have a big brand on the front end. That's what your advertising is perceived as. You're a big company, you're a big brand, you're pulling these leads in. Why are you going to discontinue that feeling with your sellers?
Good point.
They see your brand, it's a big brand, and then all of a sudden they're getting this personal one-on-one type of messaging. um, Continue that feeling, and where you're still professional business, it can still have a excuse me, it can have a personal touch to it, but at the same time it still comes from somebody who's professional.
Mhm.
Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. So it really looking at the context, the total big picture of your business, comes into play as well when you're creating these follow-up drips. I create them with that in mind, where it's professional but at the same time personable as well. So
Mhm.
yeah, I try to mix it with those two aspects in mind.
Nice. Okay.
So I don't know. I hope that made sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. The whole
Absolutely. Yeah.
bigger picture context. Yeah.
One thing,
So
I know you gave us a really good deep dive on each of those areas. If you were one thing I was thinking about is, if you're a newbie, if you're brand new to this, if you haven't really put together a funnel before, you haven't really put together a follow up system like this, what's kind of, do you have kind of a bare bones playbook of like, hey, here is where I would say you can start and just start making progress, start making steps, like start to do some of the foundational things, right?
Yeah. So if you're brand new, you don't have anything going on. I think uh, for one, follow up should probably like creating automation should probably um, uh, should be on your back burner.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're brand new and you're still trying to learn how to do these things, um, trying to automate processes you don't have yet that you haven't done manually is probably a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
You need to first learn the business and get out and talk to sellers, get the lingo going. Learn how to make offers, learn to when to make offers, develop a process for all that, for your appointment setting, for when you make offers, how you make offers, how you present, etc. Learn to do that yourself and create a process for that. Then think about how do you automate all this. I think a lot of people jump the gun and they want to get into automation all because it's sexy. It's they think it's going to take the work off. If you try to automate too early on, it will just it'll make more headaches for you, and
For sure.
it'll actually take more time for you to get started. It's the last thing you should be worrying about if you're brand new. The first thing you should be worrying about if you're brand new is how to find a deal, right? Is
Mhm.
where am I positioned in the market? Are my offers positioned well? Am I too high? Am I too low? So yeah, I think that's my first. The second thing is if you have a process already, you have a team in place. They could always. I know it sounds like a shameless pitch. Is my shameless pitch? They can always contact me, and we can plug in what I have for them. We do it all for you. So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely, man.
yeah, and that's and
Oh, go ahead, Paul.
before I we conclude, yeah, the other aspect, and I want to make sure I throw this in there because a lot of people think that follow the purpose of follow up marketing is just response driven, meaning it's the only thing that you should be concerned about when it comes to follow up marketing is getting a response. And like those days that's very old school mentality from the 80s, where the only thing you have is a response. The only thing that you can get is a response. These days, I know it sounds confusing, but I'm going to clarify it. These days, um, we have a lot more at our disposal that increases our credibility, our trust for a longer term game, for the long game,
Mhm.
where and when I send a text, the purpose of that text isn't to might not be to get a response. That purpose in my text might be to drive them to my website, or to drive them to my Google reviews page, or to drive them to an article. All those have different goals in mind. So obviously, if I'm driving them to reviews, the goal is to increase the social proof, increase the credibility in that I'm actually a real investor. If I send them to an article, a value based article, it's drip full of value and information. The purpose of that is to increase my perceived expertise in the matter. So, follow marketing shouldn't just be about, "Hey, let me get that response. Let me get that response." It's also about building a holistic type of marketing
Yeah.
plan where you're driving people to your online assets. And if you're more advanced, you can also, if you have retargeting ads in place, now you're layering all your marketing together, creating stacked marketing on one another, really taking advantage of the multiple touches for sellers, because it really does take. I mean, they used to say that it takes 7 touches, before you convert. It's actually, since there's a lot more digital data out now. It actually, it's a lot more than 7 touches.
Mhm.
I don't remember the number, but depending on your source, they're gonna quote different numbers, but it's a lot more than 7. So if I drive them to my website and now they're consuming something on my website, there's something of value, they're reading it. That's 2 touches, right? That's a text message, and then that's also them on my website. So taking advantage of our other online assets and really bringing everything together for a holistic type of marketing plan. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a follow up system in a nutshell there.
Nice. I
So
mean, that's an absolute key takeaway here of saying like, hey, The point isn't just to get a response. It's to, like you said, it's to provide value at every touch point, to play the long-term game, to really build a relationship with them over time, not just to get them to, you know, call you back or text you back.
Well, I mean, the response is important. The
Mhm.
the response is important, but sometimes when we're just asking for the response, asking for the
Yeah.
response.
The quality
We're
of
eliminating
response.
that you're eliminating the quality. That's big. You're eliminating the quality of the relationship, right?
Mhm.
It's also relationships a big currency. I mean, trust and relationship is a currency in this game of marketing, and we want to be able to use that. We have that at our disposal, so use it. So.
Love it. Well, this has been awesome, Paul. I really, really appreciate your time, man. I love. It's a different topic that we haven't touched on before, so I think people learned a lot from this. And I know you talked a little bit about how to get in touch with you. Can you reiterate that again? What's the best way
Yeah,
for
just
them to
go
get
to
in touch?
just go to my website, REI dot com.
Perfect.
REIomnidrip.com. Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Hope
Cool.
that that was clear.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we'll also link. We'll have free resources below here. We have a few ebooks here on how to scale your real estate business, things like that. So I'll link to that all below too. But thanks again, Paul. Really, really enjoyed the conversation. So
Awesome, man.
yeah,
All right. Take care.
yeah. To everyone watching, this is Matt Camp with Deal Machine, and happy deal finding.